this video, I'm going to show you from my experience the quickest way to go from 0 to 10 million plus in 2025 with any marketing agency, coaching business, or online service-based business in any niche with any service. My name's Kai Bax, and I've scaled my own marketing agency and consulting business to 10 million plus. And I've worked with 1,000 plus marketing agencies, coaches, consultants, and online service-based businesses in the last 2 years, including some of the biggest names in the industry, such as 7 Mile Media, Grow AI, The Draw Shop, Phase One Ventures, Trey Cochran, Graphic Zoo, Growth Shop, and really the list goes on. So I wanted to give you that context so that you know what I'm about to go through is actually from experience, not just something that I read in a book and I'm just regurgitating. Like, this is what I've actually done myself. And again, it's what we've helped 1,000 plus of our clients do as well. So I've broken it down into 5 key phases. And really, you have to do phase 1 in order to be able to do phase 2. You have to do phase 2 in order to be able to do phase 3, and so on and so forth. And I've tried to make it as step by step as possible, so it's easy to implement in reality. I don't want this to just be theory based. I want you to be able to watch this and then go take action on it. So let's just jump straight into it. Phase 1, I kind of define as 0 to 40K a month. Just a quick side note, these ranges are very rough, right? It doesn't have to be exactly 0 and exactly 40K. It's just kind of around like 30 to 50K in that type of range is then when you would transition over to phase 2, right? So don't get too hung up on like the specifics, but just roughly phase 1 is 0 to 40K a month. Now, the only focus during this initial stage is to figure out what offer is going to convert someone who has no idea who you are into a high ticket client. And I define a high ticket client as anything that's, if it's a marketing agency type of business or a recurring service business, really 3K a month plus is quote high ticket. And if it's a one-time product based business or one-time service based business, really anything 4K plus, 5K plus, I would determine as a high ticket. I'd actually change that honestly to 5K plus. Now, you want to, this is really important, in the early stages, you want to start with the offer and then figure out how to deliver it. The biggest mistake I see people make is they create a product or service and then they figure out how to sell it. That's much more difficult than figuring out what do people want to buy and then figuring out how to deliver it. That small distinction is extremely important in the early days. Now, this way, you can confidently spend your resources building a product or service which you know people want. Far too many people start with, hey, I want to offer X. Then they go, okay, now how do I make people want X? Instead, what I've always done, and this is what we do with every single one of our clients because it just works so much better, is we go, what does the market want? Okay, great. They want whatever it may be. How do I deliver that to them? But the only way you can really figure that out is by speaking to the market. And what's more is the offer really serves as the foundation, as I say here, to scaling to 10 million plus. That's why you want to start there, right? So creating the offer, I think through my offers in this framework right here. And just as a side note, before I get into this specifically, when I talk about offers, I'm not specifically referring to like go guarantee stuff you can't deliver, go make claims that you can't deliver on. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about offers. I think in the marketplace right now, a lot of people think offers and just think these crazy, ridiculous outcomes, right? That's not what I mean. I do not recommend to create a crazy big offer if you don't have the proof to back it up. As I'll get onto here in a minute, I recommend something else if you don't have any proof. Now, if you have proof to back up a claim, make the claim, right? Like 100% if you can back up the claim. But the problem is people see these big, sexy offers from, for example, even we have a big sexy offer, right? But we have the proof to back it up. The problem is if you copy us, but then don't have the proof, that offer is never going to work because whilst it may seem sexy and it may seem like, oh, I've got this big sexy offer, people will see straight through you because they will realize, oh yeah, you're making all these claims, but you've not got any proof to back up the claim. So the prospect, your market is very, very smart. People are very switched on. They'll be able to see straight through it. Or maybe you'll be able to trick them to book in a call with you. But the problem is as soon as they show up to the sales call with you, they're never going to close because they realize your claims are very shallow. There's no depth. There's no reasoning behind your claims. And so that's what I say a lot of as well is people may have a really big offer on the front end that ads quote unquote crush because they generate so many calls, but then they don't close anyone because the offers are very shallow. And so the ads may seem pretty good, but then when the prospect gets onto the sales call, they realize they're like, oh, actually, no, this is not what I thought it was. And then they never buy, right? So you don't want to do that. Now, when it comes to creating the offer though, I always recommend, as I said before, to think in this framework right here. So I think of niche, metric, volume, time frame, and guarantee. So the niche really is the TAM wants to be bigger than 25K. So the TAM is the total addressable market. And the reason why I actually normally say 25K to 100K. So for example, if you go after, pick any niche, any industry, right? Like for example, with those, right? We go after marketing agencies, coaches, online service-based businesses. That's our industry. Okay, great. So the niche, you want to make sure it falls between, like that for us, our niche is agencies, coaches, online service-based businesses. We want to make sure that the TAM, total addressable market, in other words, just how big is the audience that you're going after, is between 25K and 100K. The reason why we want the range is because if it's 25K or below, or I should say below 25K in terms of TAM, the problem is it's really difficult, or at least it's more difficult to run ads to. Because on ads, to run ads successfully, this is not referring to outbound. If you want to do outbound, your TAM could be 5,000 and you could just reach out to the 5,000 people that are in your industry, right? Whereas if you wanted to run ads, on ads, you need the broadest audience possible while still being as specific as possible. So there's a fine line. And I've found from my experience, the fine line is this range. Because also on the other end of it, so if it's below 25K, it's really hard to run ads to because there's just not enough of those people on Facebook. And so your costs are going to be sky high. We've had a couple clients in the past. They came in, one of our clients, I specifically remember this, it was so difficult. He came and he served bowling alleys, like bowling centers or whatever. And there was like 4,000 in the US, very, very small TAM. And like half of those weren't making any money. So like he wanted people above whatever it was, like 50K a month or something. Very difficult to run ads for. And it did really well in the beginning. He actually closed like, I think 3 or 4 clients. But the problem was, we basically ran to the whole market. Like this, we'd only spent maybe like $1,000 or $2,000, really great CPA. But then once that had spent, it's like, well, now all of the bowling alleys in the US have seen our ads. We'd changed out the creatives. We'd gone through a ton. We did a couple different offers. And like, there was just no more people to run the ads to anymore, right? So it needs to be 25K minimum. And then you need to cap it out at 100K. And the reason why I say you want to cap it out at 100K, because logically you would think, well, the more the better. And if that's the logic about Facebook ads and trying to have the broadest offer possible, if that's the logic, then 1 million people would be amazing, right? In terms of the TAM. The problem is then your messaging becomes too broad, and you can really then dial it in. So if you've got an industry where there's 200,000, whatever it is, I would say, okay, great, that's a good industry, but let's go more specific. What's a sub niche within that industry that you can really hyper go after? So now you can narrow down the messaging, and it's just naturally going to make your messaging a whole lot better. And more importantly, now that when you get into these next parts here, you can make these next metrics even more specific as well. So when I talk about metric, really what I mean is the desirable outcome. Like, what's the specific thing that this niche really, really wants? And I always say, if you was to speak to anyone in your industry, and you might actually want to do this, believe it or not a lot of people do, but it works. Ask your industry, whether it's if you've got current clients or maybe you don't have any clients. But you can go ahead and ask people in your industry, if you go after aesthetics clinics, you can go and ask people who own an aesthetics clinic, what do they want? And that's really all this is. It's just you want to figure out what does your market want. It sounds so simple, but nobody does it. Trust me, nobody does this. You want to figure out what's the one thing that they want. There's always a ton of stuff that any industry wants, whether it's business owners or even consumers. Maybe you're B2C, or you have a B2C offer. It's the same thing. There's tons of stuff that they want, right? But there is, in every industry, every niche, there's always one thing that they just want way more than anything else. You want to figure out what is that one thing and how does your market refer to that one thing. So for example, in the coaching, agency, online service-based business space, what's the one thing that everybody wants? You could argue clients, and I argue that as well, but you can also say sales calls. But when it comes to sales calls, what's the specific type of sales call everybody wants? Qualified sales calls, right? And that's a really important distinction, that it's qualified sales calls. But I wouldn't know that if I never spoke to my market, right? So you need to speak to your market, understand what's the one metric. Then you want to look at, okay, what's the volume of that metric? So in that case, let's use qualified sales calls as the example. If my niche is, which it is, agencies, coaches, online service-based businesses, I know the metric is qualified sales calls. Great. Now I need to think about what's a volume of that number of the qualified sales calls that's attractive, that's sexy. Well, I would argue like one of the offers we're running with right now is 100 calls per month. Okay. That's a volume that's extremely sexy. Now, this is where results become important. Do not say 100 calls a month if you don't have the proof. I mean, of course you can. Go do whatever you want, but I'm telling you what's going to happen is people will book in a call with you because you have a sexy offer. And there's definitely a fine line actually, because certain people will be able to see through the ads and be like, oh, this, they're promising XYZ, but they've got no proof, so they won't even book a call with you. But you will get some people book a call with you because they just want the offer, right? Even if you don't have any results. That might sound great, but I promise you, when that person gets on the call, they are not going to close, because on the sales call, they're going to realize that your claims are very shallow. There's no depth to it, right? So if you can make the claim based on your results and real proof, and if you can actually deliver the claim as well. That's the other thing that not many people think about, but you need to make a claim that you can actually deliver on, and usually that comes in the form of proof, right? If you can't, here's where it's important. If you cannot, if you're just starting out, you've got no results, you've got no proof, okay, no problem. Don't make a big claim. Rather, here's what I recommend, do pay per result, okay? Nobody likes really pay per result. It's looked down upon. Everybody wants like, oh, I just want to make the money up front. Actually, I'll just delete that so it centers again. But on the volume, I really recommend to do pay per result. And that kind of ties into the guarantee as well. In the beginning, work for free. If you have no results, just work for free. Don't try and sell your first couple clients on a 5K a month retainer or a 10K upfront pay in full if you've got no results to prove, or you've got no, if you're just starting a brand new coaching offer or whatever. Don't try and get the highest amount up front, because it's probably not going to work. You're going to be spinning your wheels, etc., etc. And as you'll see here in a minute with fulfillment, you need clients in the beginning. And I know that sounds kind of obvious, but in order to build the best product possible, you have to have clients in order to know what the product needs to be in a service based kind of industry, right? If you've got a service or a coaching product, you don't know how to make the best product if you don't have clients. So you need clients. But if you are relying on if you're relying on getting the highest upfront retainer and I'm not selling myself short, and if that's your mindset, you're never going to get the client in, because no client is going to pay in full or a high ticket retainer if there's no proof, right? But you can't generate the proof without the client. And so a lot of people find themselves in that kind of, you could call it a negative flywheel, when in reality, all you need to do, first couple of clients, just work for free. Because I tell you what's way more valuable than a $3,000 a month retainer in the beginning, or a 10K pay in full. Even a 10K pay in full, you might think, damn, 10K, what could be more valuable than that? What's more valuable than that is having 3 to 4 killer client results. You will make far more money from those 3 to 4 killer case studies than you will if you'll make far more money from those 3 to 4 killer case studies than the 10K that you're trying to get, because you don't want to, quote, sell yourself short. Trust me, it's going to be worth way more to you if you just extend your time horizon slightly. You don't need to look 10 years into the future. Just look 3 months at the end of the next quarter, right? Like just 3 months down the road. That's all you need to do. Just extend your time horizon to there. You'll be making way more money because you took that client on for free, or a pay per result basis. So not even free. Yes, it's free up front. Maybe there's no down payment, but just, instead of doing a big sexy guarantee like this, you could just go, okay, my niche is X, so you do the same process. My metric is X, same process. But on the volume and the guarantee, you wouldn't guarantee, in this case, 100 qualified sales calls a month, but you may go, hey, we'll guarantee you qualified sales calls, and you only pay when we deliver them, right? I'm sure you've heard some kind of variation like that in the past. It's nothing new. I'm not claiming it's anything new, but it works if you're just starting out, okay? So that's what I recommend there. But again, assuming you've got results, you've got proof, you know you can deliver this type of claim, this is what you would want to do. The time frame, in this case, it's kind of the per month. So that kind of, doubles up here a little bit. But that's usually how you want to think about the time frame. And then obviously the guarantee, the best one you can do is all you don't pay. You have your stipulations and all that type of stuff. I won't get too much into that. But that's really how I think about any offer for any industry. And this is also why we can have clients in every industry with any service you can think of, because this framework works in every single one of them, and it crushes it when you actually end up launching the ads, if this is correct, right? So that's how I think about it. Now, the good thing is you can do multiple offers when you're starting out and test which one is hitting the best, and then scale with that one. What you don't want to do is fall into paralysis by analysis, thinking, oh, what's going to do the best? I don't know. Oh, this, that, whatever. Just get some offers out there, okay? Now, you want to ensure the offers you create are always built off of the market's pre-existing desires and not based on what you want to offer, right? That goes back to what I said before. That's super important. A mini story on this real quick. I used to only do coaching. I still do some one-on-one consulting with some, like kind of hand-picked clients, but it's not, I don't really make too much money from it. It's not the main thing that in comparison to the other money we make, it's basically 1% or whatever, right? So I don't make the money from that. But what I used to do a couple of years ago is purely coaching. And when I took that coaching offer onto ads, because I did the coaching through organic, right? If you go back on this YouTube channel, you'll see tons of videos. And the offer I was doing back then was the coaching. Great. But when I took that offer to paid ads, because I knew in order to scale, I needed to crack the code on paid ads, right? That was the only way we could scale to where we're at now. When I originally took that coaching offer to paid ads, nobody wanted it. Why? Because nobody wanted nobody wanted a done with you or a coaching offer. They just wanted it done for them, right? They wanted a done for you agency type of offer. And I cannot tell you how many, well, it was basically every single sales call I took. One of the things I'm going to say here in a minute is in the beginning, you need to take the sales calls. You cannot hire a closer in the beginning. I'll get onto that. But when I was on the sales calls, because again, all of this is based on what I did, right? So when I was on the sales calls in the beginning, every single prospect was telling me on the phones, oh, I just want you guys to do this for me. Can you just do this for me? I just want you to do this for me. And I really didn't want to do it. I did not want to be an agency. I had an e-commerce agency back in the day. I transitioned out of that because I wanted to go into coaching. I didn't like the agency game. Really the done for you game. Like I didn't think done for you scaled. All these things, incorrect limiting beliefs, by the way, they all were, but I had them at the time. So I didn't want to do the done for you thing. But I could not ignore the fact that every single prospect I spoke to was all telling me the same thing. They wanted done for you. And so whilst I really didn't want to deliver that, I didn't want to offer that, it's what the market wanted. And so again, I built I then was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to deliver done for you at scale, that obviously where we maintain quality and all that type of stuff, and actually get results at scale. And it's an actual scalable model, because there is a lot of agencies that won't scale because of the done for you aspect of the service. It's very intensive per client and whatever else. But I had to switch because the market wanted that. And so we delivered it. And then all of a sudden, guess what happened? People started closing, people started getting results, people started retaining with us. And then all of a sudden, our ads started to do really well. We had a very profitable CPA, and we've obviously been running ads ever since. That was probably maybe 3 years ago or something like that. And so my point is, you have to build your fulfillment based on what your market wants, not what you want to do. Just if there's one thing you take away from this video, it has to be that. Okay. Now, during this phase, there's really only two focuses that you need to have, which is generating sales calls and taking sales calls. That's it. Because not only is that the only way you're going to get clients, but also that's the way you're going to be able to really understand what it is that your market actually wants. Like I just said there, like I would never have known that everybody wanted done for you if I never just took sales calls and just spoke with the market, right? So they need to be your only two focuses. And also, again, the only way you can really build a great product is if you actually have, quote, users, to use the software industry, SaaS industry kind of terminology. You need users. You need people using the product so you know where it's breaking, what's working, what's not, what people like, what they don't, what you can build more of, what do they want more of, what do they want less of. You need clients, you need customers, you need users in order to build the best product possible. And that all starts with generating and taking sales calls. And the number one way to generate and take sales calls is through having the most attractive offer and, in my opinion, running ads. I mean, just nothing comes close to having a great offer with a great mechanism and running ads. Nothing comes close to it. And ads provide you with ads provide you a consistent and repeatable way to get sales calls every single day that you're in complete control of. In other words, it's not like organic where you kind of cross your fingers and hope you have a post that either goes viral or, whatever it is. On paid ads, if you know your cost per call is $200, as long as you don't mess up when, if you try and scale and spend more and try and get more calls, if you do it in the correct way, your cost per call is $200. So if you take your spend from 1,000 to 2,000, you're going to double the volume of calls. In other words, if you double your inputs, the output, it's directly correlated. Double your inputs, you're going to get double the output. There's no other system that is that directly correlated. There's no other system that puts you in that much control of how many sales calls you generate on a daily basis outside of ads. That's why, in my opinion, it's the best. Now, of course, you can see me right here. I'm doing some organic stuff now. That's because I think now ads with organic is obviously the ultimate thing, but you need ads as like the core. It needs to be the center of your acquisition. Then you can do these organic efforts on the side to kind of prop up the ads and increase the efficiency of your ads, decrease the costs, etc. But ads, just trust me, ads is the best. Now, I know you may be watching this video and you might be like, I don't have any money for ads. Okay, well, anytime someone comes to me and they don't have budget for ads, I always tell them to use client-funded acquisition or client-financed acquisition, which is where you get your clients to fund your ad spend. So here's what I mean. Instead of running ads straight away, if you don't have any money, you can't run ads. Okay, that's fine. Don't not take action, right? Like you still need to do something. So here's what I would recommend. Instead of running ads straight away, you want to use your new offer and get your ideal client's eyes onto it through organic channels such as, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn DMs, cold emails, and organic and just your general network, right? But you still do all of these steps here with the offer, but instead of using, because if you think about it, running ads, all you're doing is just paying to get people's eyes on your offer. That's it. So you can get people's eyes on your offer without paying for it, right? Just through these other methods. And so that's what you would want to do. Now, albeit they're not as efficient, they're not as scalable, etc. Well, in the beginning, you're not looking for things to be hyper efficient. You're not looking for things to be hyper scalable. You're just looking for ways to get your first couple clients. That's all you need to do. And these methods definitely work to get your first couple clients, right? And as I say here, the goal is to optimize for volume of eyeballs on your offer. Don't cherry pick which free acquisition channels you use. Just remember, they're free. So just use them all. Don't ask or think or spend really any time thinking about, should I do this or should I do that or should I do that? Don't think about any of that. Who cares? Just post it everywhere. Post on LinkedIn, Facebook, post it everywhere. You know what I mean? Because it's fucking free. You know what I mean? So use them all. Okay, you want to optimize for volume of eyeballs on your offer. Maybe you post and nobody sees it. Okay, no problem. It was free. You've not lost anything, right? The goal here is to just get 1 or 2 clients to pay you your fee, which you can then use that money to fund your ad spend. In other words, you can technically run ads for free if you don't already have an existing budget. You get a client, now all of a sudden you have money for ad spend, right? Now, either way though, in the beginning, the first step in building your consistent, repeatable, and scalable client acquisition system is to be able to buy qualified sales calls for ideally less than $300 per call. And I'll show you why this is important in a minute, but this is really the ultimate first step in being able to scale to 10 million plus. You must be able to buy qualified sales calls for less than $300. I mean, again, the organic stuff, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Referrals, great. But if you aren't able to buy qualified sales calls, your business inevitably is going to be extremely, number one, inconsistent. And number two, it's not going to be scalable because one month you may blow up because you have a YouTube video that bangs and crushes, or maybe you get a ton of referrals one month, but the next month you can't replicate and or scale that effort, right? Because you're not in control. Whereas ads, if you can build an ad funnel that when it's ran properly and it's ran effectively, it produces a $300 cost per call or lower, really. You can scale because now you can just buy more calls. That's it. It's literally that, like it's that simple. Now to build that, to get to that point, it's very difficult, but that's where you want to get to in the beginning, and that's what you want your focus to be on. Now, these two things will get you to roughly 40K a month, or at least it did with me, okay? And we see this with all of our clients. Like, these are the two major initial focuses, and it will give you a base in which you can then use to scale. Now, what's also important to know, as I was kind of referencing before, is that I highly recommend taking the sales calls yourself in the beginning, as there's literally nothing more important than you generating and taking sales calls in the beginning in phase one, okay? Now, if you say, I don't have time, or anything else, to be honest, you're focusing on the wrong things in the beginning because there's nothing else that's more important. So if you're spending your time in these other areas that are less important, then you should say, I don't have time for those things because you need to be on the sales calls. It's not, I don't have time for sales calls. It's, I don't have time for those things because I need to be on sales calls. There's nothing more important. And also on top of that, with fulfillment during phase one, I recommend to also do this yourself and potentially introduce like a contractor or freelancer, just to help you, but not to do the fulfillment. They just need to be a helping hand. As I say here, right? I basically repeat myself there. They should be helping you, not doing the fulfillment. Now, you need to be getting your hands dirty with fulfillment, as it's going to be a huge advantage in the later phases. In the beginning, you need to be a jack of all trades. You need to know how to close yourself, and you need to know how to fulfill on the service yourself. I won't go too deep into that whole idea here in this first phase because I'm going to go deep into it in the second and third phases. But just know in the beginning, just please trust me, do it yourself. You are going to thank me so much later. You don't need to thank me, but you will thank me so much later because you took the time to do this yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be dependent on somebody else and things are just going to be, they're going to feel very fragile. Just trust me. Later on, you're going to thank yourself for doing it. So, main outcome of phase one is to create an offer that strangers will pay you for and get to 40K a month, right? That's really the main focus for phase one. And again, remember, if you don't have funds for ads, just use organic to get the funds to start running the ads and really focus on, I would say the two main outcomes for phase one is creating an offer that strangers will pay you for. That's a key point, strangers, not like organic people, because again, you would remember the story I told you that when I was doing the coaching, I was doing really well with organic, but I knew to scale, I needed the consistency of paid ads and the scalability of paid ads. But it wasn't that the coaching offer wasn't working on organic. It was. But the problem was the organic people weren't buying the offer. They were buying me because they were following me or whatever it is. They wanted to work with me. And so I had the false, not expectation, I had the false belief that the offer was really good, when in reality it wasn't. It was just because all these prospects were organic or referred. And when I went to ads, nobody cared about me. They cared about the offer. And then all the weight got put onto the offer, and that's where it was very clear that it just didn't work, okay? So it has to be an offer that converts strangers, because that's a very different offer than one that would convert organic or referrals. Quite frankly, with organic and referrals, you don't even need an offer. You just say, hey, I'll help you do X, Y, Z, and people will book a call and buy from you because they want to work with you, right? But again, to scale to 10 million plus, which is what this whole video is about, you need to be able to convert a cold stranger. The way to do that is to have a great offer that actually converts strangers, okay? So that's the outcome of phase one. Second phase, 40K a month to 100K a month. You only want to enter phase two once you have an offer that converts strangers into high ticket clients. Again, if you don't have that offer, you need to revert back to phase one, even if you're already doing 50 to 100K a month plus. So we've had a couple clients come into us. They're doing 150 a month, 200 a month. Great. But they've gotten there all through referrals. And so again, it's the same idea. They try and apply the thing that they do for that works for them on referrals, whether it be an offer or a service or whatever it may be. And they try and apply that to ads because they think, oh, I got to this point with XYZ service. I'm doing 150K a month with this offer or this service. So let's just scale that on ads. No, doesn't work like that. It has to, whatever it is that you're doing has to work on ads. So even if you're doing 50 to 100K a month, I would highly recommend you revert back to this, you rebuild your offer based on this, and then once it converts a cold stranger, again, then you can come into phase two, which is 40 to 100K a month. Now, assuming you have the offer, there are now 3 systems that you need to build out that will take you to 100K a month with relative ease. Okay, so the first one, we've kind of already touched on this, so I won't spend too much time here, but it's a consistent and repeatable way to generate sales calls. Super important, right? You must have a system where you can buy qualified sales calls for a cost that makes sense. And again, usually this is around 250 to 300, depending on the market. And it also, of course, needs to be consistent. Usually if you can buy calls though at that price, it means it's consistent by the very nature of being able to buy the call. You just buy more calls. Like it by default means it's consistent. And this is why running profitable paid ads is by far the best acquisition system. Because like I was saying before, nothing is more consistent and more scalable than paid ads, right? But the second thing you need to then focus on building out is a consistent and repeatable way to close sales calls into high ticket clients. Now, this is essentially referring to a sales script or framework that if you take 100 qualified prospects through, for example, 30% or more are going to buy your high ticket offer, which again is the 3K a month plus if agency, or any type of recurring service, or 4 to 5K plus if any type of coaching, consulting, online service-based business, right? That's an important distinction, but you need to have that sales process to where if I take somebody through this script or framework, whatever you want to call it, it closes at 25 to 30%, and you need to know that with certainty. And again, you as the founder need to build that process, not a closer or somebody else on the team, unless it's a co-founder. If you've got a partner or whatever, one of you owns fulfillment and operations, the other one owns marketing sales, that's totally fine. But they need to be at the same level as they need to be at the owner level, right? Not a team member. It will not work. I've tried it. I've seen clients use it, try it. It doesn't work. Now, The other thing is that it needs to be one process that you can use over and over and over and over again. In other words, it's productized, okay? And it continuously produces the same result, which is a 25 to 30% plus close rate. The only way you can build this one single process that closes every time you use it, again, 30% plus, is also via talking to the same person with the same problems who have the same desires. So that's also why in phase one, and this is also why I've structured this in the way that I have, I say here about the niche and the metric and etc. because you have to just be going after one person. You cannot have all these different people, these different industries and different niches, different problems and all this stuff coming in and booking a call, because it's impossible to then create a sales process that works over and over and over again, because you're going to need a different sales process for each individual person. It's way too messy. It doesn't scale, right? It's going to break its scale. And so again, that's why it's really important to have a specific person that you're going after, that you're calling out. You have a specific outcome that you're speaking to every single time. And the inverse of that then means if you're speaking to a specific outcome, the inverse is everybody has the same problem, right? Because the outcome is just the inverse of the problem, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. So it's really important that you have that specific person so that it becomes way easier to build that singular process that you can just, or sales process that you use over and over and over and over again, because it's the same person with the same problem wanting the same outcome. That's it. Nice and simple, right? Now, if you don't have this yet, well, then that's exactly what your focus needs to be on during phase two as the founder, right? Again, I always recommend for this to be you as the founder or the co-founder. Many clients think that getting a closer is the best way when they can't close themselves, okay? It's super common. But the issue is closers operate best when they join an offer that already has results, already has a proven track record, and more importantly, already has that sales process that has been battle tested and is proven to convert. And they just come in and they just implement on the existing process. And let me talk about a quick downward closer spiral. So what always happens is the following, and nobody thinks about this unless you've been through it. You can then see it. But if you haven't been through it yet, it's hard to predict that this is going to happen. But this is what happens every single time. So you got to think, if I'm a closer, if you're a closer, right? What are you going to want? If you're a closer, you want to be going onto an offer that has consistent sales calls coming in, consistent, volume of bookings. You want those bookings to show up at a decent, show rate. You don't want to have 10 calls a day and 3 of them show up, right? You want to have a decent show rate, and you want to go into an offer that's already proven to work, to where you can go in, you can see that this person and this person and that person, they're all using this one sales process, and they're all making 10, 15, 20K a month in commission by closing on that offer. You want to see that as a closer. Now, here's the thing. If you're a good closer, you will have those opportunities on the table ready for you to take up, right? Because good closers are very rare. They're very sought after. And so if I'm a really good closer, I'm not going to have one offer that I'm kind of like, do I go on there? Do I not? I'm going to have multiple, or at least I know that if I was to reach out to certain companies, they're going to take me on board, because everybody, again, as I said, is always looking for great closers. And so if you don't have that proof that this offer converts, if you don't have the proof that, hey, this sales process is the sales process that converts at 25%, you don't have the proof that you're closing, 5, 10, 15 new clients a month, and instead the only proof you have is like, hey, yeah, we can get sales calls, but like we've never closed these guys before. What closers do you think are going to be interested in that offer? It's going to be the closers who are new, who don't have the experience of knowing I need an offer that has consistent sales calls, that has other closers closing at a high clip rate, all these things, because the good closers have been burnt in the past. They've been on offers where they were promised the world and they realize, oh my God, this offer's terrible. They get terrible results, nothing works, etc., etc. Whereas the new closers, they haven't been burnt yet. They're like very open. They're like, oh, I've gotten, this business offered me a position as a closer. I'm going to take it, right? And then that would be you offering them that position, because they don't know what due diligence or DD to do. The closer doesn't know what due diligence to do on the offer. So they're going to take it. But guess what? Now you've hired a closer, amazing. But that closer is going to be terrible because they're brand new, they're inexperienced, they don't know what's going on, they don't know how to close. And worse yet, you're expecting them to come in and close on an offer that's never been proven. So you're expecting an inexperienced, low skill level closer who's never made a dime closing to come in and build your sales process. like when I explain it like that, hopefully it's clear as to like, oh yeah, like of course that's never going to work, right? But most people don't think like that, and I totally understand why. But that's the reality. You know what I mean? Like I wish it wasn't. I wish you could just hire someone and they come in and close and it's amazing. Doesn't happen like that. I hate to break it to you, but it just doesn't happen like that. So instead, what you need to do is you need to validate the process first, then go out to the market and try and find a closer. That way you're going to get more experienced people interested in the offer because they can see that it's been validated. They can see it's working. They can see the consistent sales calls coming in. They can see that, this sales process works and it closes and it converts the prospects, etc., etc. And then they will be interested. Then you can make the hire, okay? So that's this focus number 2 at this stage. You need to build that consistent and repeatable way to close those calls into high ticket clients. Finally, third focus, I should say, is really the same thing, but on fulfillment. So you need to now find a consistent and repeatable way to deliver client results. So similar to the sales process, we also want to build a consistent and repeatable fulfillment process to where you essentially, we call it a fulfillment conveyor belt. But in other words, essentially it means that every time you close a new client, you know that there are a certain set of hoops or a certain steps your client needs to take. And once they get through that quote last hoop, they get the result by default. It's like if they do X, they do Y, they do Z, they get the result. Or that's if it's more of like a coaching thing. If the client does the work themselves, well, you need to now know, you need to understand what are the things they need to do to get the result, whatever it is that they come in for. Conversely, if it's a done for you type of business, then you need to do the same thing, but it's on your end. Like, what actions do we need to take as a team to get this, to get our clients the result that they've paid us for? Well, we know if we do X, we do Y, we do Z, by default, the client's going to get the result. Amazing. And maybe it's a mixture. They need to do X, we need to do Y, they need to do Z, we do A, B, C, whatever it is. And if that all happens, we get the result. That's the conveyor belt. And then again, each time you get a new client come on, you just put them onto the conveyor belt. They go through the processes. Some people call them activation points. It's the same exact thing. They go through the processes, they get the result, right? It's consistent. And again, this is why you need to have that niche. You need to have the same person coming in with the same problem, with the same outcome. Because otherwise, if you've got all these different people coming in, they all need different things. They all desire different things. It's all over the place. You're not going to be able to build that conveyor belt, okay? Now, the way I built our fulfillment conveyor belt is through a constant product, service, feedback, results, refunds, iteration, feedback loop. So let me explain. For all of 2022, myself and our first account manager had a daily call, and we literally went through every single client account and we looked at results and client messages and we looked at what's working and what's not, and we just continued to optimize and iterate our fulfillment process until we built a fulfillment conveyor belt. And it took us about a year to really get that dialed in. Like, I'm talking 12 months, Monday to Saturday, a call every single day, going through every single client and going through exactly what's working, what's not, how's the client, what's working on the experience front, what's working on in the ad account front. And we just, over time, I just kept adding to this big Google Doc that we had. It was literally labeled Fulfillment Conveyor Belt. And I just went through day 1, day 2, day 3. And on each day, I literally wrote out, here's what needs to happen day 1. Here's what needs to happen day 2. Here's what needs to happen day 3. And then I would, oh no, that didn't really work. Let me back that out. Let me change that. Here's what needs to happen instead. Great. The next client that came on went through the more updated version. They got a slightly better result. Amazing. The one after, they went through the updated. They got better and better and better. And it just builds on top of each other. And this is also why you need to start with generating clients, because we would never have been able to build that process if we didn't have clients. By the way, it's not just as a side note, it's not that the initial clients were paying what the current clients now pay. Obviously, our fulfillment is way better now, and our product and our service is significantly better now than it was when we first started. But the clients, when we first started, were paying probably 1/20th of the price that we charge now. I actually think it's probably around 1/20th of the price. So they were paying significant. So the value they were getting was still massively exceeding the price they were paying. Now, the value our clients get is obviously 100x what it was back then, but our pricing is not 100x, but our pricing is 20 times more or whatever it is, 15 times more. So it kind of, backs out. But, and that's why you want to start off cheap, get the clients in on a cheaper retainer, cheaper price point, and then obviously slowly build, as the value of your service or product builds up over time, you can then start to increase the price over time as well, right? Now, the only way you can truly build a fulfillment conveyor belt is by having the same client come to you, again, with the same set of problems who need the same set of solutions. This is why we want to niche down on the front end and create a specific offer for a specific person, right? Now, during phase two, you simply need to start taking note of what is working for clients and what isn't, and start to build out your fulfillment conveyor belt. You don't need to have it squeaky clean, as it literally, as I said before, it took us 12 months. It took us an entire year to build this out. Now, if I, in January, so to speak, looked at where we were in December, I would have been looking at this mountain. I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's so much work that's got to go into it and whatever else. Whereas I didn't look at that. I just went, okay, what right now out of these clients that we're currently working with, where can we improve? What's the number one area of improvement? Again, the inverse of that is, what's the number one constraint? This is the number one constraint. Great. How do we fix it? We do X, Y, Z. Perfect. Now, next constraint. We just kept doing that over and over and over again for 12 months. It took us a long time, but also it was one of the biggest, had one of the biggest impacts on us getting to 10 million plus, which again is what this video is focused on. So, it's like, yeah, it's a big thing. It's going to take a lot of work, but the outcome of hitting 10 million plus, I mean, I would say it's worth it. So maybe you don't think it is. I don't know, but I personally do. Okay, so as a recap, during phase two, you should have your day split up between sales and fulfillment. I say you should. Really, what I mean is what I did. I split my days up between sales and fulfillment, because in this stage you had to do both. You couldn't have closers or account managers running things, or a manager running that department like we do now, which I'm going to get onto. You had to be in the trenches yourself doing it, right? And again, that's what I was doing. So I split my day up between sales, fulfillment, and actually, that shouldn't be in here. This was the training from clients. We obviously run the ads for our clients. But I would say, honestly, during this phase, you should have your day split up between sales, fulfillment, like say 8 to 5. That period is split between sales and fulfillment. And then just like an hour before you start the day, or an hour at the end of the day, depending on if you're a morning or night owl, I would spend an hour or two on marketing. Like at this stage, you're not spending a lot on ads. You're probably, or maybe you're still doing some organic type of stuff or whatever it is. Marketing shouldn't take you that long. An hour a day should be all really you need to spend on it. Unless you have somebody like us running it for you, right? If you need to do it yourself, an hour a day, you're probably going to be okay. Now, sales and fulfillment though, that needs to be where all of your time is going. And so usually clients during phase two get hung up on specifics, about their website and their logo and their branding and how they look and their name and this and that. Just don't be that person, honestly, because it has zero impact. Trust me, it has zero impact. So you can split your day based on whatever works best for you. However, again, what I did is I went 5 till 11 was sales calls. That's because I'm based in Perth, Australia. Next year I'm actually moving to London, but right now, when I was building, I was in Perth. I still am, and so all my sales calls were like US based. So it was like their afternoon, early evening. So that was the only slot that really worked based on the time zones. But you can do it whenever you want, right? Whatever works best for you. But I did 5 till 11 sales calls. And again, that was where I really focused on building that consistent and repeatable sales script and framework. Every day I would take sales calls, and then I would really try and figure out what worked, what didn't. I would tweak the script, and then the next day I would go back and redo the script. Just like I was saying about before with the fulfillment, it's the same thing with the sales process. You got to tweak and tweak and tweak until it kind of cracks, right? And then for the most part, 12 to 5, I was just focusing on fulfillment. So that was where we had, I was focusing on building the repeatable delivery process. I'm also building healthy client retention, which breaks down into client results and client experience. That's also where I had the call every day with our original account manager, who's still with us actually. He's one of our top account managers. And, we had a call every single day, and we went through every single client, and we just iterated over time, okay? So that's phase 3. Now, that's phase 2. Phase 3, 100 to 250. So I call phase 3 productizing. So to make something productized means to make it scalable, okay? And if you've successfully completed phases 1 and 2, that means you now have a consistent and repeatable way to close clients. You know that if a qualified prospect joins a sales call, shows up to the call, you can close them at 30% plus-ish with a specific sales script and process, meaning, you literally have a Google Doc that it's scripted out, it's frameworked out, and if you follow that framework, you can close somebody at 25, 30% plus, right? And then finally, or the second part to that is you have a consistent and repeatable way to fulfill on clients. So you, again, know that if you close the qualified client, you need to take them through X number of hoops or milestones or activation points, whatever you call it, and they will receive the result that they paid for at the end of the process. Okay, that's it. If they go through these 7 activation points or these 7 hoops or these 15 steps or whatever it is, it might be 25 steps, who knows, right? But you have a certain set of things that you need to do. And when they go through that, they get the result. When they go through that, they get the result. At a relatively high, it's not going to be 100%. You're never going to have 100% client success rate. We have refunds. We have clients where it just doesn't work out. We thought we was going to do really well. It didn't work out. It happens, but that should be like, our KPI for refunds, for context, is 3%. So in other words, for the most part, 97% of the time, it should work if they go through these activation points. That should be kind of your benchmark, let's say. So now, assuming you have these 2 things in place, now we need to create a consistent and repeatable, and scalable way to close clients, and then the consistent and repeatable and scalable way to fulfill on clients. So now we're focused on the scalable aspect of the consistent, repeatable, and scalable systems, okay? So you will also find yourself at this stage as well, extremely stretched. You'll feel overworked. You'll feel, like you're almost on the verge of burning out. It's very normal because you're the one closing the clients, fulfilling on the clients. It'll feel like a lot, okay? And feeling as though everything is on the verge of breaking. That's very common. You may feel like everything's kind of like on eggshells. It's just like at any moment, any kind of blow of wind is just going to blow this whole thing over, right? It won't feel like a real company. It's very, very common. You'll feel like a really highly paid freelancer, most likely. At least that's what I did. Or maybe it's starting to actually break. Clients are starting to now not be as happy as they once were. Maybe the refunds are a little bit higher than they used to be. Maybe the results aren't as good, etc. Because you've got so many clients and your service is spread extremely thin. It's very, very common. And so this is why the outcome of phase 3 is making sure your consistent and repeatable processes are scalable. Because up until this point, we've just made sure they're consistent and repeatable, right? We've not focused on making them scalable. And obviously right now, it will start to feel like everything's breaking because it's not scalable. So you're trying to make a non-scalable system scale. It's going to break naturally, okay? So as I say, scalable in my mind is really just making it more productized. And the following, these 2 are not in any particular order. You can do either or first. I'll explain in a minute what I did first, but you can do either or, whatever you would prefer. So productizing sales. Now that you have the consistent and repeatable sales process, you can now hire a closer and install them into the already proven system, okay? The biggest pitfall I see here is clients thinking they can give someone a script and they can perfectly implement it and start closing straight away. That isn't the case, and it never will be the case. I wish it was, but it's just not the case. I've tried it. I've seen clients do it. It doesn't work. This stage requires you, number 1, to hire the right person, okay? And I've got videos on the channel in terms of how I think about hiring and whatnot. You then need to onboard them correctly. So onboarding really, you need to onboard them into the product. And I would kind of group market into that, like train them on who your prospect is, what type of client do you work with, what does a qualified client look like, what's their pains, desires, all that type of stuff. And then of course, onboard them into your sales process. Okay, like how do you sell? What's been that system that you've been using over the last however many months to close people at 25%? What does that look like? Then you need to ramp them effectively and efficiently. And how I look at this, ramping effectively and efficiently for closers is I go 2 calls per day for usually around 2 weeks, okay? In other words, that's a half calendar. That's what this is, half calendar, okay? That's how many calls the closer wants to take over the course of the first 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you're still taking the calls, right? And they're also taking 2 calls a day and you're taking whatever the balance is, right? So 2 calls a day for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, you want to see a 15% or higher close rate. If they are below, cut. Or at least we cut. So if a new closer comes on 2 weeks, they're not above 15%, we cut them. If they are above 15%, then you go full calendar. Full calendar if above 15%, okay? And now you can then step out of sales yourself at the point at which they go full calendar, and then they can take the full calendar, and then you can just focus on managing them. Now you're out of sales. But they have to show that they can close at 15% or higher before, number 1, you give them the, 4, 5, 6 calls a day. And number two, before you step out of sales. What a lot of people do is they hire a closer, as I said before, they give them the sales process, they completely step out of calls, and they do all of that before the closer's proven that they can actually close. Because what is very common is a closer can close on another offer, but maybe they can't close on your offer for whatever reason. The problem with that is it's extremely expensive. If you're running ads and you bring in a new closer, maybe you can tell this has happened from experience. I did it once where we hired a new closer. We put them full calendar, filled them up back to back to back qualified sales calls, and it was like maybe 2 weeks or so, I think, maybe just under, of back-to-back sales calls. So, 4 calls a day, 5 calls a day consistently for 2 weeks. So that's 10 days. Our cost per call is about $350 US, or let's be conservative. So that's obviously 40 calls, 40 times 350 cost me 14 grand. I've actually not done that calculation. That hurts. I'm going to exit out of that tab. That hurts seeing that. But 14 grand is what I spent on this closer. He closed one deal. One deal. After 40 calls, right? So you can see it's very expensive. So instead, if you just do 2 calls a day for 2 weeks, get them to prove themselves, and I would say proving themselves is 15% plus close rate. In the beginning, obviously you want them to be at 25% plus, but in the beginning, 15%, that's enough to go, okay, with a bit more training, a bit more tweaking, they can definitely kind of get to where you want them to be, which is 25 usually for the most part, 20%, 25%. But if they're at like 3%, they're so far gone from they're so far removed from the 25% number, it's just never going to work. You just need to cut your losses there, right? So do 2 calls a day. And then, as I say, if they get to that point at the end of the 2 weeks, they're at 15% close rate net overall on the 2 weeks. The first week they may be at 0. The next week they may be at 20. But if they can average out 15% across the 2 weeks, that is my sign to then go, okay, great, full calendar. Then you can step out. The other good thing as well about you not stepping out until that point is that then that way, if the new closer isn't closing, well, at least you're still taking sales calls, so you're still closing, so you're still making some money, right? Again, if you just give it all to the closer, not only are you paying money to fill their calendar, but also, which is a direct cost, right? Because you're directly spending the money to fill their calendar. But then obviously on the other side of it, you have the opportunity cost of calls that they could have closed or should have closed, but didn't. So you've got the opportunity cost as well as the direct cost. So like that 14 grand, that was directly came out of my bank account and I lost that, it's gone. But also, if those same 40 calls went to a closer that was closing at 25%, I mean, this is going to hurt just as much, but 25% on 40 is 10. You could say factor in the show rate. Let's say, for example, it was net 6 deals that should have closed that didn't. Was our price point is 15K on that offer that he was closing. That's 90 grand. So that's 104 grand that I lost, factoring in direct cost and opportunity cost by letting him take full calendar and not closing, right? Painful. So that's why you want to ramp them, as I say here, effectively and efficiently, not the way that I ramped in the past, okay? And then, of course, finally, you want to have a daily meeting cadence. Now, in the onboarding process as well, the daily meeting cadence is really made up of call reviews. So the 2 calls a day that they take, you want to then review the call, and then on the daily call that you have with the closer, you want to then review the call with the closer and show them like where they could have done better, what they could have improved, and that's where the training comes in on a daily basis, okay? So that's what you want to do to productize the sales. Now, productizing fulfillment, okay? So similar to sales, you need to you now need to start hiring your first or second, if you've already hired somebody in phase 1, like that helper I was talking about, like the contractor or freelancer. You now want to start to hire your first like real account manager, or again, move that contractor into the account manager position to facilitate, in other words, move the clients through that fulfillment conveyor belt that we've now built, right? Now, these account managers, unlike the first hire, should be self-sufficient. Now, the same as sales, you can't hire someone and expect them to perform perfectly without any input from you. So again, you need to hire the right person, you need to onboard them correctly, ramp them effectively and efficiently, and again, have a daily meeting cadence. Now, let me just show you a really quick onboarding process that we use for our own account managers. All right, so this is what we use. I wrote this for our client success director, which is who manages the department of fulfillment. I'll get into the managers here in a minute as well of how that works, but for the most part, very high level with our new account managers, how the onboarding looks is here. So the goal of the onboarding / ramping process is to make it extremely overwhelming and challenging for the new hire. That probably goes against maybe what you thought. And it goes against what I used to think as well. But I found making it overwhelming and challenging for the hire is way better. Why? It's because if we can make the onboarding more difficult than the reality of the role, naturally, anyone who, quote, passes or gets through the onboarding process will do very well once they start taking clients. It's the whole idea of train hard and fight easy, right? So that's how I structure all of our onboardings for our account managers, closers, anyone. So for our account managers, I'll just rip through this because this is not part of the video, but I just thought it would be valuable. So day 1 to 7, they have a daily call with the CSD, which is the Client Success Director who runs the department. In this case, it would be you. It was me for ages until I promoted a manager, right? But call 1 is expectations. Call 2 is the client journey. Call 3 is client constraints using the 6 metrics. We have 6 metrics we run all of our clients through. It's really the core centerpiece to our fulfillment conveyor belt that we have, right? So that's call 3. Then call 4 is building the client offers. Call 5 is copywriting. Call 6 is the ad process. And then call 7 is draft ad launch review, okay? Now that's 1 call a day, every day for the first 7 days. Then after the first 7 days, what we look for is we want to see if the account manager is listening and taking on feedback. Are they implementing each day relative to yesterday? Are they getting better over time? Do they build on your feedback and coaching, or do they need to continue to be reminded of the same thing over and over again? Are they asking questions? All those types of things. For the most part, what we're not looking for is them to be perfect right now, as I say here. What we're looking for is, do they have the potential to become perfect, right? And answering these questions will show you whether or not they have the potential. That's what you want to see. What's the potential? Not how are they right now? Because for the most part, you're not going to find somebody who's perfect right here, right now. But with enough tweaking, they may have that potential, and that's what you want to try and identify. Now, if your answer to any of these questions is, if you hesitate to any of these questions, like, are they asking a lot of questions? They're asking a few. If you hesitate to any of them, we cut. So we're very, very ruthless on who we keep and who we cut. And again, any hesitation, obviously if the answer is just outright no, they're gone. But if there's any hesitation, we cut straight away. I'd rather cut. Here's the thing, with account managers specifically, this is just me, this is how I think, and maybe my mind will change on this, but I would rather cut somebody, I would rather overcut and potentially cut somebody who could have been good than keep everyone or not cut enough and keep people who are bad. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. There's a fine line there, but I definitely lean lean on the side of cutting, to be honest. Now, day 8 to 14 is when they get their first 2 new clients. So there's a period there where they don't get any clients. It's just training. Day 8 to 14, in that sort of second week, again, roughly, it's not hard exact, but roughly second week, they get 2 new clients. And then we kind of go through a similar process and we make the cut if they don't perform on the 2 clients. If they do perform on the 2 clients, day 15 to 21, third week, they get another 2 clients. So now they're at 4 in total. And again, it's basically the same exact process, right? Week 4, another 2 new clients. And we basically just repeat that process and we cut at the end of each week if at any point we feel like the account manager doesn't have that potential, maybe isn't as good as what we thought they were, etc., etc. And we essentially cut them. And on the flip side, if we don't cut them, they get another 2 clients and they get another 2 clients each week. So we drip feed. So that also decreases the potential damage a bad account manager can do to our clients. So we really maintain and control the client experience and client results. And then if they then end up getting to, this is the other thing, if they end up then getting to full capacity, which is 15 clients under management, in our case, our account managers manage 15 clients. For you, it may be different, whatever. But if they get to full capacity, they then, by default, again, by the virtue of getting 15 clients under management, which is our capacity, it means they're a great fit because they've been through the ringer, so to speak, to get to that point. And if they're at that point, usually they're, if they get to the full capacity, the account manager is with us forever, pretty much, right? Because they just don't churn. So that's how we do it. Now, again, what's important to know is that I would not do these simultaneously, okay? I wouldn't try and hire closers and hire account managers for the first time round that you do it. I wouldn't try and do it both at once because it's hard enough to get one locked in. So I would recommend to hire for whichever department is the most efficient / dialed in, and whichever you like doing the least. So I don't like taking sales calls all day. So what I personally did is got sales off my plate, hired a closer. We actually had an appointment setter, and I promoted him way back when I first got off the sales calls. He then became closer, and I then really just went all in on fulfillment pretty much. Yeah, by hiring one of the departments out and then just managing it. You still need to manage it. You can't just forget about it. You still need to manage in QC, etc. But by hiring one of them out, it allows you to then go deeper into the other department. So the big key outcome for phase 3 should be to have both sales and fulfillment performing at or above KPI without you needing to be as involved as you were in phases 1 and 2. Okay, this will allow you to hit around 250K a month. Now, phase 4 is 250 to 500. Okay, so by phase 4, you should have a consistent, repeatable, and scalable way to generate qualified sales calls, to close new clients, and to fulfill on clients, right? Now, phase 4 is where you will switch your mindset from being on the front lines to running your organization through your team. Okay, so your goal should be making your team win. That should be your entire goal. So no longer are you trying to close the highest or trying to get your team, trying to get your clients to, get the best results or whatever. Your focus shouldn't be that. Of course, the organization should still be focusing on that, but the people focusing on that should be your team, not you. And you focus on winning through your team. So this specifically requires you to do 2 things. Do more and do better, right? To use Hormoz's quotes. Do more and better. So spend more on ads, hire more closers, hire more account managers, more operations staff, get better at recruiting, and have better daily team calls. So in online businesses, the team calls really define the culture, right? Because that's where all of the company interacts together. There's no other time the whole company interacts outside of team calls. So the quality of those team calls is really the quality of your company, right? And so you need to make sure that you have very, very solid daily team calls, and it's a skill. You need to get better at that over time. Secondly, you want to develop your team. So the number one focus for you at this stage, again, is to develop your team and build them up, train them better, get them, essentially just raise the bar of your team, right? Because again, in online service-based businesses and really coaching, agencies, etc., all those types of businesses, your team is the product, right? Because you don't have unless it's e-com or whatever, but you don't have a physical product that you're sending out to the clients or customers in that case. So your team is typically delivering some kind of service, or they're coaching something or something of that nature, right? So the quality of your team determines the quality of your service or product. So the only way you can improve your service or product is by improving your team. The only way you can improve the team is either number 1, get better at recruiting, or number 2, get better at training the team or train them to be better. Simple as that. And so at this stage, that is all you should be focusing on. In other words, really phase 4, if you want the TLDR of phase 4, it's just phase 4 equals management. That's it. You just got to become a manager. That's it. That's literally phase 4, right? And for context, one of my favorite books just on broad business in general is called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I probably read it about 6 times. Every time I read it, I love it. It's by Ben Horowitz, who's also one of my favorite entrepreneurs. He says, if you have 10 people on your team, next year they'll roughly work 20,000 hours combined, okay? Roughly. Now, let's say you spent 12 hours training them, and that equates to a mere 1% improvement, which if you spend 12 hours training someone and it only improves them 1%, I would say that's a pretty bad, you need to improve your own training, really. But even just that, well, if you improve it 1%, you will gain the equivalent of an extra 200 hours of work as a result of your 12-hour training. So in other words, again, at this stage, there's literally nothing more leverage than you could do, that you could be doing with your time than training your team when you're at this stage. There's nothing more leveraged. So that should be your entire focus, okay? And what you should also be doing, again, I say you should also, because this is just what I did that really worked for me, is a lot of recruiting and hiring top players, right? That's again, the way to increase, there's only 2 ways to have a better team: better management, training, etc., or better talent, right? And so getting really good at recruiting and hiring top A players is, again, another very high leveraged activity to be doing at this stage. And again, get really good at it, particularly for our type of business model: agency, coaching, service-based business. The only way you can get a better product or service is just to have a better team. Next, create better onboarding and ramping processes for new hires for every department. You'll also now notice as well, this is really key. One of the constraints you'll face is, quote, scalable talent acquisition as well as scalable ramping. So if you hire somebody and it takes you 6 months to ramp them, that's going to slow your growth tremendously. If you can ramp that same person to the same level instead of 6 months in 1 month, you're going to be able to move a whole lot quicker. So that's going to be determined by how efficient your onboarding and ramping is. And that's why also I showed you this, because this is how specific you need to go. Like, we map everything out. We have the cutting processes, etc. And we do a ton of front end recruiting so that then that way we can then, if somebody comes in and they're not a good fit, I can cut them with confidence because I know there's somebody else ready to come in. If you don't have a high volume of recruiting that you're doing, the problem that then always happens is you make exceptions because you don't have anybody to replace that new closer or account manager or whoever it is on your team. If you don't have anyone to replace them, you're naturally going to tolerate way more than you would if you had a ton of great people on the bench ready to come in and replace that person, right? And making exceptions or tolerating subpar behavior is the enemy of a great team. And so you need to have great onboarding and ramping processes, and you need to do a lot of recruiting because otherwise, again, you're going to tolerate terrible behavior. You're going to make a ton of you're going to make a ton of exceptions. You're going to be, oh, it's okay, like whatever. Like, no, you cannot do any of that if you want a world-class team, right? Also, at this stage, you want to be doing a lot of weekly one-on-ones with everyone on your team. These should be where you dive deep into the personal side of your team, see how they're doing, see how they're going, how they're progressing. This is also how you can understand what it is that they really want, what they hate, what they get annoyed at, etc., so that you can build a better environment for them to work in. So now, again, as I said before, a lot of your focus changes from creating the best product possible to creating the best environment or the best company possible for your team to prosper. Because if your team's prospering, by default, it should mean that your clients are prospering, right? That your clients are doing tremendously well. And so your focus needs to be on building and cultivating that environment. This is also why it's so important to hire great people and cut everyone who's below par, because what the worst thing for if you have an A player on your team, the thing that they hate is a B player. And so if you keep that B player on your team, it's going to come at the detriment of the A player, because now the A player is most likely going to leave, or at least they're not going to be as happy as they would if everybody was on the same level as the A player, right? And then finally, again, daily meetings. So these should be ran extremely effectively as they act as the center of your culture and ultimately your company. So they're really important for you to really control. And so once you get to 250 a month, a lot of your work becomes extremely boring. Again, if you watch Hormozy, he says, do the boring work. This is, for me at least, where I found this came in. Like, a lot of this is boring. Just better onboarding and do more recruiting and being on LinkedIn and trying to find people and poach people and running, recruiting ads and doing interviews. I don't hate it, but it's very boring, right? It's not fun, but it's needed in this stage. And essentially in phase 4, you need to become, as I said before, an exceptional manager and leader. And you win by making your team win, okay? You lead through your team and you get results through your team, okay? Finally, to wrap up, phase 5, 500 to $1 million a month. Up until this point, you will have had a team running sales and fulfillment and potentially yourself running marketing. However, you may still be involved with fulfillment by jumping into certain problem client channels or giving strategy, or maybe, for sales calls, you may have been saving a couple deals by, taking the follow-ups or whatever it may be, right? You may still be involved. For me, I was never really involved at this stage in the sales side of things, but I was still very involved in the fulfillment. So I was taking couple problem clients may come up, or certain clients wanted to have a call with me or whatever, I would jump on with them. Whereas now I have one-on-one consulting clients, they pay separate for that, but that's the only fulfillment I do. But they pay, if you want to know, it's $5K a month on a 4-month minimum that they pay, and I have a call a week with them and whatever else. But that's not the clients for our core, service, if that makes sense. And so, I was still doing a lot of the front end fulfillment, or at least I was having maybe 5 calls a week with clients, which is fine. But again, that's not scalable. If that ramps up, you're going to be on client calls all week, right? And so now we need to remove that dependency on you so that you have clients who close and move all the way through the activation points and receive the result that they paid for without you ever speaking to them. That is the ultimate holy grail, and that's the only way you're going to be able to get to 1 million a month or 10 million a year roughly, right? And this is where we can really ramp the volume yet still maintain client results, close rate, profitability, etc. at scale. And so how you achieve this, how we achieved it at least, is through installing managers or directors into each department. Okay, so these managers or directors should be developed from within. Now, the one exception I've personally found to this rule is a sales director. So we actually hired externally, and it's worked extremely well for us. However, for fulfillment, it's never worked. So our sales director now, he used to be the sales director for Alex Hormozi at Gym Launch. I think he was the third hire for them. I'm pretty sure Alex and Layla flew him out to New Mexico, which is where they were. He was doing all the sales for their he started selling Gym Launch when they first started it, and then he moved into all of the sales for their back end product, the Gym King or Lords or whatever it was. And then he went and he was then the sales director at B&B Formula, which is Brian Page's company. They were doing like 4 million a month as well. And then now he's the sales director with us. But the only reason I say that that's worked for the sales director in terms of hiring externally is because, at least in my mind, how I think about it is because their sales processes were very similar to ours, right? Like a high ticket sales process usually is very similar for if it's B2B high ticket and you're selling to like either local business or you're selling to like agencies, coaches, like that type of market. It's relatively transferable from company to company to company if it's the same sales process, right? If we had a SaaS product, it probably wouldn't be transferable. Whereas I've found in that instance, with his track record particularly, it was very transferable. It made a ton of sense. Whereas with our fulfillment is so hyper specific to us. It's just like there's no other company has our fulfillment. So if we was to hire externally a director for our fulfillment, they would have to learn so much to where it's almost honestly, I would think it would be almost impossible for them to learn everything needed. Obviously, they would also need to know at a significantly better level than the rest of the team in order to manage them and train them up and build them up, etc. It's just almost impossible, at least from what I've found. And so our client success director, our fulfillment director, I've always, I tried it once, hiring externally, did not work at all. We just hired the wrong person, honestly, but it just didn't work. Whereas now our fulfillment is the best it's ever been, and the person manning it, the person directing it, Fidel, he has been an account manager with us for like 2 years, and he's doing a significantly better job than I could ever do. Like he's doing way better than I was when I was in that position, and it's because he's amazing, but also because it's he's been hired from within. So what you'll need specifically on the director front, I won't go too deep into this, but specifically on the director front, sales director, client success director, and then like a CFO or finance/legal director as well. Our CFO basically handles finance, legal, and HR. We don't have too much for HR, but like that type of the team in general, like he also handles that, and also he's very proficient in the legal space, so that also helps as well. So that kind of typically it's going to be one person, and so now. It's almost like it's like layers, right? So like now your focus would be from leading the team to leading the directors who lead the team, who then take care of the clients. Does that make sense? And so usually there's a 3 to 5 month transition period between you leading a department and you promoting somebody to take over. However, once you do this, it's a huge release for you as the founder, as this will be the first time nothing in your business depends on you, and you still get great results for your clients, and your revenue grows without you really needing to be too involved. I'm still very involved because I'm our CMO, if you want to call it that. I still run all of our marketing. So I'm still very involved on that front. But you'll notice, actually, if you've been watching me for any length of time, I stopped posting YouTube videos for like however long, years. Now I'm going back on the YouTube train, but that's only because I've got time back. There's this false belief that you can kind of build a business to like 50K a month, 60K a month, 70K a month and have it as like a lifestyle business. You don't need to, work online, 4-hour work week and all this stuff, right? I found that to be absolute BS. When I was at 50, 60K a month, that was when I was working the hardest, right? Whereas now that we're significantly bigger than that, we've got directors manning each or completely owning each department. They're compensated on each department. They're incentivized to build up their own department. We've got great frontline team. We've got great client, everything's built out now, and we've got people operating each department. This is now when I've had the most time I've ever had. Hence why now I'm coming back and doing these YouTube videos, just so you know. So actually, I've personally found the lifestyle business stuff that starts to occur, if you want it to occur, I would probably say around like 500 to a million a month, because you have a big enough business to where you can pay great talent to run it for you. The problem at 50, 60, 100K a month, whatever it is, you don't have enough money to be able to pay great people to run the operation for you, right? Whereas when you get bigger, you have that ability. And also, it's very a common saying, but it's very true. Your vision becomes big enough to where other people's vision can fit inside it. Whereas if you're doing 100K a month, it's just not big enough. It's just going to pay for you and your lifestyle, but nobody else, right? So I found the bigger you get, actually the easier it becomes from that perspective. So anyway, also at this point, if you want to go back to it, you can now take on new initiatives. Like I'm going back and taking on YouTube. But you can take on new initiatives, and if you want, you can make yourself a pretty website and a logo. So that is my process. Again, this is based on my experience, what I've seen work for me. Maybe there's definitely different ways to go about it. This is just what's worked for me. So hopefully you found that valuable. If you did, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you're interested in working with myself and my team, there'll be a link in the description to book a call. If you don't want to, no problem. Just subscribe, check out the next video, and I'll see you there.